Prison Gardens and Nature-Based Therapy by Dorian Grant. In prisons today, the United States has the largest prison population, which is standing over 2 million inmates and is increasing. Recidivism is also at an all-time high here in the United States. This calls for action and different forms of therapy to prevent prison populations and recidivism rates. In prisons, there are a lot of mental illness. Research shows that 282,000 inmates nationwide are mentally ill. 40% of white women under the age of 24 suffer from mental illness. 547,800 people are on parole and labeled as mentally ill in our prisons. The first known use of nature-based therapy was in Egypt, and it was prescribed by a doctor who prescribed nature walks for the mental disturbed royalty. In early 1800s, nature therapy moved to more mental illness disorders. In 1897, a psychiatric institution in Philadelphia built a garden for therapeutic activities. The Mississippi State Penitentiary started their first field labor in 1901. This isn't technically, the ideal plant-based therapy, but it helped. In the 1990s, when psychiatric patients became involved in gardening as a form of therapy by Carl Mingner. Plant relationships of environments and psychological plant relationships of environmental was studied with Kaplan in 1973. Studies show that nature was a deeply personal chord with the grower. So if you plant things and nurture them, it's kind of like a baby. You start to get an invested personal chord with the plants. The history of plant-based therapy. In 1990, a survey of 55 prisons in 41 states stated that 75% had vocational or correctional play industries. 19% of the prisons have formal or informal plant therapy. That's formal is like they're planning, informal is showing pictures or watching videos of nature. 6% didn't have any plant therapy programs in the prison. So what is nature-based therapy? The U.S. has green prisons since the 1990s. They are nature-based therapy to prisoners under professional guidance. The gains of this therapy include vocational education, practice mindfulness, social skills, and working well with others. Some of the top nature programs, there are 4 of them. The first one is Greenhouse, also known as Green Team. It is at Rikers Island in New York City. The second one is the Inside Garden Program, which is at San Quentin and the California State Prison. The third is Garden Project. It is located in San Francisco. And the fourth is the Green Project Prison, which is located in Ohio and Washington State. There are many more programs, as stated before, but these are the biggest that are in the States, but it might be because of population, so more people partake in these programs. At Rikers Island, there are approximately 16,000 inmates. This is the largest farm in New York, and it produces up to 40,000 pounds of produce per year. So you're like, what do they do with all that food? The food is donated to cooking classes within the jail and homeless shelters. Sometimes they get donated to elementary schools, which are in bad neighborhoods, so the children can get produce. It goes to community gardens and daycare centers. The Inside Garden Program, which is in San Francisco, California, they have a 2-part program. So it's the inner gardener and the outer gardener. The inner gardener is lessons on transformation, change, meditation, emotional process, work, and ecotherapy. The Outer Gardener works on human and ecological systems, organic vegetable, and flower gardening. So those are two different types of gardening that they focus on. After you get released from prison, they have a program called Plant Justice, and this employs the prisoners, well, the ex-prisoners, to find a job. The Insight program in San Francisco, California, innovates communication and vocational gardening and landscaping to train people so that in prison they can reconnect to themselves, the community, and the natural world. Insight Gardening is based in California and is now moving nationwide. The mission is to have a successful re-enter into society. So their main form is teaching people a trade. So landscaping would be their trade as they re-enter into society. And they help place them so that they will have a job when they get out. Another program is the Roots to Reentry, which is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This program consists of a 14-week training period. So they have 14 weeks to complete this program. So it's not, you don't stay there the full time. The 14 weeks is for study and learning, and then you could still participate in the program, but you would just be assisting newcomers into the program. The produce is donated to food kitchens, and also, like all the rest of them, after being released from prison, former inmates will go to a 6-week landscaping program and a halfway house. So this is a little different. They go, while they're in jail, they're training for 14 weeks on how to landscape. When they get out, they're sent to a halfway house, and they get a 6-week landscaping program. They don't really put them into a job, but they give them the tools necessary to get a job. So it's up to the released to follow through. A Master Gardener program in Bryan, Texas is a minimum security prison for women. The program is sponsored by a Texan Agricultural Extension Service. This program is 3.5 months. And with this program, you can transfer credit hours to Texas A&M University. So how this works is, in the prison, you go through this program for 3.5 months. You get 400 contact hours, which is like service in classroom, and on hand. In the scholastic area of the program, if you average over 70%, you will receive 40 credit hours to Texas A&M University to continue your education if you would like to do so. There is a nature imagery prison project called NIPP. So the other ones I talked about before were hands-on nature-based therapy, and this one is a pictorial or video therapy that involves gardening and nature-based therapy. So a study that takes place on Snake River Correctional Institution in Oregon. This is a year study, and it shows inmates that are involved with videos and pictures that pertain to nature while in prison. The results of the study showed that inmates become calmer and less violent as the inmate went through only 4 hours of nature video therapy. So with only 4 hours of nature-based therapy, they are already seeing signs of less violence. Now that is major. Inmates that are in there also have a 26% less violent infraction, so they don't get into fights. They're 20% less, they have a 20% percentage of not getting into fights with other people. Their disciplinary actions also decrease, as in disciplinary referrals and violent behavior. The psychological impact improved connections and reconnections to nature. So as these men and women are going through nature-based therapy, they are creating connections with the plants, with the people, with nature. It gets them out of just, I'm sitting in a cell block in prison and I have nothing else to do. They feel like they have something to live for. And they're also gaining um, trust, mental stability without even knowing, or like the traditional therapy of I'm sitting with a shrink and talking. So in the community, they also do rudimentary skills, which are like carpentry work. So they make benches, window and planter boxes, trestles for public schools and libraries. They also construct things for nature like nesting boxes for owls, bats, and sometimes even hammocks for leopards and mandrills who are endangered, and the zoos need them to make it. Ecology in the garden. Inmates take classes that cover the Earth's ecosystem and urban ecology, including plants and animals in the system. Ecology increases health and vitality of the regional ecology. Organic soil is also composed from decaying organic materials. So if your program is based on ecology and gardening, they would use natural soil. So they wouldn't use soil you could buy at a store. They would compose the soil and make sure the plant is organic. And a lot of gains from the therapy, as I've stated before, you get mental health, connections, your violent tendencies go down. Having combined activities with vocational education helps practice mindfulness, social skills, and how to work well with others and in groups. And this is not seen in prisons as of today. Because when you think of prisons, you think of everybody fighting or getting into it. But the garden therapy helps them work well with others. The recidivism rate of inmates that partake in garden therapy is 10% less. And it also helps assist nearby food kitchens and homeless shelters. So being in this program helps them feel like they are helping the outside and still maintain a connection with the outside world. Neurological and health. Psychology and neuroscience shows that nature is restorative and can improve your life by helping cognitive function, makes your stress low, helps with blood pressure, and boosts psychological well-being. So with the blood pressure, you're not stressed out sitting in a jail cell. You might can even get off medicines if the individual finds garden therapy to be that therapeutic to them. With cognitive function, some research has shown that they have gotten off of antidepressants because having the contact with nature eases their mind. It also helps redevelop motor skills from people who are affected by trauma. So, like in the women's prison, you might have somebody who has been raped or beaten by another individual, and they can find peace through garden therapy with that. Garden nature with therapy, it also can treat mental illness and physical pain, like I was talking about before with the therapy. People partaking in therapy feel less anxious, depressed, aggressive. It's just a very calming experience. When you think of walking in the park, you think about you go there to release, any bad vibes you have, or just get a sense of mind. So this is kind of the same thing, but within the prison setting. Therapy as a feeling of responsibility, achievement, and empathy. So inmates, just like how we do on the outside, these prison inmates feel the same way. They feel like, oh, I'm growing and nurturing plants, and I'm helping the world by making hammocks for endangered animals for the zoo. It's just giving them something else to do rather than having them sit there in a cell and be, mind bottled. It opens up their mind to different to different adventures of life. It also is very good because inmates who leave jail, don't leave prison, don't really have a way of finding a job. It's very hard for them. So the garden-based therapy helps them with that and providing them resources and educational advances so that they can maintain a healthy and safe reentry into society. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.